finally over by ref. We're gonna look at this. Apparently, quote unquote, woke is dead, according to the thumbnail. But I am absolutely convinced that woke is not that dead, and we will see the second coming of woke soon. We're gonna see it. We're gonna see it. We're all gonna get cooked collectively, all of us. I can see it. I can see it because they love to fuck it up. Anyways, we'll jump in. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. So this seems to be about the recent BlackRock interview. We all know what BlackRock is. At least I am hoping so that we do, right? A company has a lot of shares everywhere and stocks, a lot of power, a lot of money. You get the idea. Pushing a lot of stuff. Major reason for the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest. You get the idea, right? We know who the evil guys are. Our chancellor is a BlackRock spy. Moving on.
Hey, what's up, guys? Here. So when it comes to the subject matter of this video, I have many feelings. On the one hand, I feel vindication. On the other hand, I feel deep frustration for reasons that'll be very obvious in just a second. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, you know for years I've been calling out DEI and wokeness and the negative impact that has had on multiple industries and mediums. And all throughout that, I've been pointing out the performative nature of all of this and how it is a gigantic agenda push, largely due to the efforts of very powerful individuals and entities out there. Well,
we know. Recent discovery. They distort. Circumcision destroys a man's pleasure. Apparently, like a recent study dropped that like you shouldn't do this to boys because it ruins that. They've been baiting us into pegging. I'm just kidding. It's crazy.
Well, that's been called a conspiracy theory or hateful or bigoted, what have you.
Conspiracy theory also just means you are early. That is all a conspiracy theory means. You are early.
For many years, being able to point that out. But as with many things these days, it wasn't some conspiracy, it was just truth a couple months early or a couple years early. Because the CEO of BlackRock, one of the, probably the biggest proponent and pusher of DEI and wokeness across the world, has come out and just straight up admitted that the woke era we've been living under for the past couple of years was a failed corporate experiment, and now they're trying to pivot.
Which is rather interesting. That's what we've been saying all the time, right? This is pushed by companies, by the media. Now, I don't know what user brought, right? Because it was a financial failure. I guess they thought it would work, but we can tell that it does not. I mean, literally, look at Disney. The state of Disney is a pretty accurate it's pretty accurate of like it's pretty obvious that it was all just a agenda push. Right? I live in Europe, and like the mass immigration is also one of those things that comes from the woke era, and that one's definitely not dead. If you think the woke era, it may have failed, but it's not gone. Woke is not gone.
To something else while acting like nothing has happened. Let's listen to this clip together.
Do you believe the woke era a failed experiment? The ESG, the DEI, the kind of push for that. When you talk about things now, you talk in a practical sense, what we can do, what we can get done. Looking back at that, how do you see it?
Society moves, the pendulum moves all the time. In BlackRock's cases, we are responsible for managing money for everybody. And even today, as you said, maybe these, renewables are less talked about it. I can tell you right now, we have many investors worldwide are investing in renewables, trying to emphasize solar and other things like that. We're working with Occidental Petroleum right now to building the best carbon capture factories in Texas right now. So do I believe the pendulum 5 years ago was too far? Yes.
You do?
Do I believe we're more I'm personally more pragmatic too. And I believe...
But do you think BlackRock pushed some companies a little bit further left than you thought?
It was never our intention, because our job is to be... I got to be a fiduciary to everybody who gives us money.
So there you have it, folks. The CEO of BlackRock, the biggest pusher.
First, my guy says the pendulum swing too far. Then he's saying right, that they never did anything. I find that hard to believe. I find that very hard to believe. Yeah, don't trust this man at all. Never trust a man who looks similar to Friedrich Merz. Don't do that, which is our chancellor in Germany. Never trust this anyone that looks like that. Never, ever.
Of all this stuff, just straight up admits this was all just a failed corporate experiment. And now the pendulum is shifting another direction, and they're just moving on from all of that. Acting like, well, you have nothing to be mad about. This is just the changing of the times. Oopsie whoopsie. We ruined all these lives and ruined all these mediums, but who cares? We're moving on, and we're just going to keep making more money. That is the reality we live in, and I genuinely believe people like Larry Fink are evil, and I don't throw that term around very often. This guy is evil. You can play the rest of this clip. He just drones on for another minute or so, just going in circles, saying a whole lot of words, but very little substance. At the end of the day, this guy just admits that he's been using pawns, whether it's people and or industries.
Obviously, he's evil. I mean, these guys are also in the housing market, absolutely ruin it too, right? These guys are absolutely evil. This man is evil. I agree. This man is evil. This man is evil, right? Anything above money, right? This guy is definitely evil.
To push an agenda that now is recognized as a corporate experiment gone wrong. Let's look at some of the comments here, and I will expand on the main points. Here's a quote from Endymion saying this. BlackRock CEO admits the woke era was a mistake, and everyone who played into it was manipulated. Every website, every person. It was never genuine, actual truth bomb, dude. Every push of DEI and all that was carefully constructed to fit narratives. I got called so many names for pushing back, and now the guy who started it is like, yeah, we screwed up. Unreal, dude. So much damage has to be undone from this. So many game companies alone still clinging to this BS, knowing it won't work. Unbelievable. And that is the key takeaway here. These people are brainwashed. The people who fell for this, whether it's in the gaming industry or elsewhere, they are indoctrinated by this stuff. I think it began with a personal agenda. They want to use these points to enforce their own agenda. They want to use DEI to push their own agenda.
Actually, I think it's different. The people weren't, like, the companies weren't indoctrinated. See, what I believe is more so true that originally it started smaller with just regular people and more regular people. Eventually, those regular people were eventually hired for these companies, and then the company started acting weird. After the original teams and the original people that worked at that company eventually started to disappear and be replaced with people that are following this agenda. It started small from the worker level up to until eventually the higher ups, until those were replaced eventually as well. That's how it actually works. I don't think that these people were brainwashed when they were already in the company. These people were brainwashed and then put into those companies.
Agenda, and to feel in some way emboldened to go after anybody who questions it or has a different point of view than them. We have seen this, but now they're stuck in this stuff. And the CEO can come out and say this was all a failed corporate experiment, and they're not going to be listening because they're too far gone at this point. And yeah, people like myself who have been calling out DEI and all of this stuff and how performative and ridiculous it is, we got called every name under the sun. Right? People literally try to ruin you for calling this stuff out. And now he's just like, oh, oopsie whoopsie, let's move on. So many people have been made a fool out of this. They were literal pawns, completely manipulated. Whether it's websites, people, corporations, it's all a part of this scheme that is just right in your face. And here's a reply to that previous post saying, now,
And obviously, the easiest way to do this is obviously indoctrinate the ladies, right? Because that's the easiest one to do. You can literally look at like graphs, right? Of like political alignment. The men have always been slightly conservative. They're still slightly conservative, right? But the women just went, shoo, huge mountain left, radicalized. There's that.
you now have millions of incompetents employed in major roles across every industry who can't do the job, yet their existence depends on DEI. They will continue to push it and fight for it no matter what now. Can't put the genie back in the bottle. They get paid to push it. And that is definitely true. There are endless people who only have their position at their current job because of DEI, because they chose identity as a priority over competence. And we've seen people literally die because of this. This isn't just, oh, geez, people are losing out on jobs who are more qualified. No, people are put in trusted positions where people are literally losing their lives due to incompetent.
Yep. If you remember the pilot, right? I don't know if you do, but if you do remember the pilot, right? Yeah. I think that makes sense, right? If you think about that, right? The pilot, it makes sense, right? It makes sense.
Hires who are only there because of their identity. This was stuff that was pushed on everyone for years across the globe. I mean, I talked about this with the California wildfires, where some of the fire departments came out and talked about their DEI programs where they spend millions trying to hire people who look like the victims of fires. And of course,
Yeah, and obviously, cut down on a lot of stuff, and also, apparently, you don't keep water around for, especially a region that is prevalent in. Not the smartest people there.
you had people who would just straight up admitted they couldn't even carry someone out of a burning fire who were hired only because of their identity. This stuff is deadly. And back then,
Remember, they had to use like purses and stuff, like bags, to extinguish fires. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that they didn't have that around.
I remember getting attacked for saying, hey, every million you spent towards that, if it was transferred somewhere else and it saved even one life, that would have been worth it. People thought that was very bigoted. That's how crazy and far gone all this stuff is. But here's another quote saying, let me get this straight. The folks on the far left who kept yapping about taxing the rich, eating lab-grown, grass-flavored like meat, rainbow flags in our nurseries and primary schools, pro-migration, forcing geopolitics and modern-day sexual orientations into our video games, and plastering DEI in every workspace imaginable, were being manipulated and controlled by the rich? Yeah, anybody who's not been experiencing life with blinders on knows the truth of this statement.
Of course we do. Of course we do. And we're not done yet. We're by far not done yet. By far not done yet. As a European, I can tell you, you haven't seen half of it. You haven't seen half of this bullshit that we're seeing. You haven't seen half of it. It is crazy. Don't worry, guys. You'll get your dose. If this doesn't stop, you'll get your dose of European wokeness, which, in my opinion, is a lot more how do you say it? Not radical, but a lot more hard to get rid of and hard to it's a kind of indoctrination that you really can't fight off. They're a lot more hysterical about it. I can tell you.
This is the upside down world we've been experiencing the last couple of years. And the effects, like I said, it's not just the gaming industry, it's everything. It's the education system, it's corporate, America corporate, global, everything. Everything that could possibly be touched by this has been touched in one form or another, and it's all been for the negative. Here's another quote, translated from Spanish.
Even further, you could argue the sexual revolution falls already into the woke category if you wanna go that far. It already started with that.
This post really went worldwide, guys, by the way. All of those who thought they were anti-establishment revolutionaries for being woke and spending the day hassling people turned out to be getting used as puppets by BlackRock. Yes. Literally millions of people fit under this description. They think they are anti-establishment revolutionaries by pushing all of this nonsense for years. Turns out they're just puppets of a massive, massive, massive corporation. Here's another quote saying, people learning that their entire political...
Yep. Nothing but that. Nothing more than that. Puppets. Useful idiots is the term you would use here. And, again, this won't disappear. Right? That's why I'm saying the thumbnail is a bit silly. Woke isn't dead. It has not been killed yet. And if you're not careful, you might see a resurgence of it.
Political ideology was a scheme thought up and created by billionaires they hate. Can't make this stuff up. Yeah, here's the thing. This stuff is so indoctrinated that at this point, I believe it goes beyond just an ideology or an agenda for these people. The people who have been used as pawns for this and have supported this stuff, it's basically a religion to them at this point. It has consumed every aspect of their life. They depend on this to be real. They depend on this stuff to be pushed. Otherwise, they have nothing. They get hired because of their identity, or they use this sort of woke era we've been living under to justify harassing people who have done nothing wrong, to force their morals and their
murder. They use it to justify murder. We have seen it. We have all seen it.
beliefs onto other people and be able to label them as other in order to justify anything bad that happens to them for questioning DEI or wokeness. Let's move on to another translated post saying, I love the silence of feminists after finding out that all their policies and struggles over diversity, gender, and rights were funded by BlackRock's billionaire patriarchy. They thought that bearing their tops because they wanted to and leaving their bodies untrimmed because they were fighters, and it turns out their boss was Larry Fink. I'm crying from laughter.
But we know this. We very well know this. I mean, that is very obvious, right? The only reason you wanted women to be in the workforce is not because of equality or because women were supposed to be financially dependent. That there was no such noble... Whether it's good or not, you need to decide for yourself. But there was no noble goal behind it. They just wanted to collect more tax money and double the workforce. And it's ironic how one salary was enough, and now if things get really bad, you barely scraping by with two. Isn't that hilarious? Mission failed successfully.
The amount of useful idiots out there is staggering, ladies and gentlemen. But here's one more. It really pisses me off that I lost all of my closest friends due to the far left social justice moral bundle of sticking and evil elites like this guy who are responsible. Their entire political ideology was a scheme devised and funded by the very billionaires they hate. The amount of people, like, I'll ask you, the viewer, have you lost friendships or connections over the last...
Yeah, obviously. Yes, I have. This is very obvious, right? Even like in VTubing, I've obviously lost people that I had originally contact with that are now gone. That are now just gone, that I don't interact with anymore because, well, they chose this side while I am sitting on this side. So there's that.
Couple of years because of stuff like this, because you're not cool with DEI or you think it's performative or wokeness, if you call that out or think it's performative, have you lost friendships? I mean, you know, the subject of grifting even comes up when it comes to content creators. Do you think being anti-woke is some masterful grift? I'll tell you it's not. I get called a grifter every single day. This is the worst grift ever. If you want to be anti-woke, it's a terrible one because you lose opportunities, including financially, which thank goodness I have you guys and your support, whether it's just watching videos or super chatting or showing up to streams and doing things like that. You've been able to help me out and make it so I don't have to rely on all of this sort of nonsense. But it has direct effects. What Larry Fink, BlackRock, and all these agenda pushers do, they have an impact on people personally, and they also have a pervasive cultural effect where there is right think and wrong think. And the sort of compass that's been directing millions of people has been pushing wokeness. And those who question it have been chastised. I mean, I remember even a couple years ago, people lost their jobs or got banned on social media or lost sponsorships for saying there's things like two genders.
You think the woke era is over? You think that wokeness is dead? I'm gonna shock you with something that you didn't know was happening in Europe. They want your full name on social media. I am not kidding. They want my full legal... If I post something, my full legal name is supposed to be on social media. If you thought woke is over, you are dead wrong. You are so wrong, it's crazy. And it's oddly enough that they basically used a case of essentially distributing AI generated corn to advocate for full legal name on the internet. It's not over. If anything, it might get worse. Because once your full legal name is out there, you think anybody's gonna still say something in Europe? You think anybody's still gonna fight this? When essentially their life's gonna be put on the line? Nah.
Like, there's only two genders. That was a thing that would literally have your life turned upside down only a few years ago. And people like Larry Fink want you to just forget that happened, even though they were the ones pushing this stuff harder than anyone else. Like I said when I started this video, what are my feelings? Well, it's all over the place. There's vindication, okay? My thoughts about all this has been vindicated. I know so many content creators who do what I do, who look at this and say, yup, we've been calling this out rightfully for years. And now you have the puppeteers coming out and saying, yep, this was a failed corporate experiment. That's vindicating. Well, on the other hand, it's deeply frustrating because the people who are doing this, they will not feel any sort of remorse. They don't feel bad about anything that's happened. They don't feel bad about the negative impacts on people's lives. Even the violence that has been created because of these systems, they don't care. And the people who have been useful idiots throughout all of this, they're not going to look in the mirror. They're going to ignore this. In fact, they'll probably call this propaganda, like alt-right propaganda or something, to justify how stupid they are and how much they've been used over the years by billionaires like this. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I know there was a lot going on there, so please share your thoughts about today's topic.
Anyways, that's the end of the video pretty much. We're not done yet. My honest opinion is we're not done yet. It'll get worse. It'll get way worse. It gets way worse when you look at like stuff like what Meta is doing, right? Meta is literally what's the word? They are literally the ones behind all the age verification, right? It is gonna get worse. Get ready. It'll still be worse. It can always be worse. Anyways, just get ready.